Welcome back to Hannity, back with us to talk about his brand new book, consequential as always, in stores tomorrow, Plunder and Deceit, Big Government's Exploitation of Young People in the Future. I call him the great one, Mark Levin. You know, I pulled out of your book some stats you put in there. You got over 60 pages of footnotes in this book, which is
it's a 200-page book with a bunch of endnotes if people want to delve in further, yes.
All right, well, which I think is valuable to your reader. Yeah. This is stunning. For those of us that are conservative, believe in limited government, greater freedom. All right, look at this. Number of pages of regulations in the Federal Register. You go year by year, it's like 75,000 at least a year, 79,000. Total number of regulations in the Federal Register in the past 10 years, 768,920. Then you put in there the number of regulations issued by the executive branch. This is just the executive branch. New regulations, fiat, bypass Congress like Obama. Then you put in the number of bills passed by Congress, which is nearly next to nothing. They have no power anymore. How do you explain this shift in power, especially under Obama, the executive branch?
Well, Congress doesn't defend itself. Under the Republican Congress, they surrendered the power of the purse. They surrendered the power in the Senate of treaty making. The word impeachment is never spoken. It's hushed, but it's never spoken. There are powers that Congress have that can control a president, but they will not exercise it. And yet over the decades since the New Deal, the executive branch has seized authority, and the congressional branch has thrown authority to the executive branch. So we really have this fourth estate, this massive bureaucracy. The EPA is the worst of it, that is passing laws. So the whole constitutional structure has been turned on its head. We do not have a constitutional republic. We don't have a federal republic. We don't have a representative republic. We don't have a republic right now.
Then let me ask you about the Republicans. 2013, remember, 2010, 2012, all these guys ran on the idea they're going to repeal or replace Obamacare. So one Senator, Ted Cruz, filibusters and says, let's use our constitutional authority, power of the purse. He gets excoriated by the very people that made the same promise. Then we hear they're going to stop in 2014 in that election cycle. They'll stop executive amnesty. They end up funding executive amnesty. So obviously they know what we want to hear, but then they can't deliver. Why?
They won a majority in Congress on a lie, didn't they? They lied their way into the majority. Look, what this is going to take is a strong conservative getting the nomination in the Republican Party. People under 45 have never had an opportunity to vote for a conservative for president. It's time. You realize Ronald Reagan wouldn't be president if the Bush family had succeeded. And they're back, and that whole force is back, and they keep beating down conservatives like we can't win.
But it's Lindsey Graham, it's John McCain.
Thing. They're the same mentality. These are big government, Washington-centric Republicans. John McCain's running for re-election. Guess what? He's lurching to the right. Lindsey Graham was running for re-election. He's lurching to the right. People are sick and tired of this.
Let's talk about the Democrats. There's an interesting moment on Chris Matthews'
They're lurching to the left, and they're staying to the left.
Well, the only interesting moment he's ever had. He asked Debbie Wasserman Schultz the difference between a Democrat and a socialist. Watch this exchange.
What is the difference between a Democrat and a socialist? I used to think there was a big difference. What do you think it is?
The difference between
a Democrat like Hillary Clinton and a socialist like Bernie Sanders.
What's the difference between being a Democrat and being a Republican?
Well, what's the bigger difference? What's the big difference between a Democrat and a socialist? You're the chairman of the Democratic Party. Tell me the difference between you and a socialist.
The relevant debate that we'll be having over the course of this campaign is what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
I think there's a huge difference.
What is the difference?
I think the Democrats are more left-wing than the socialists. I think that's the difference. I think they're more Marxist than the socialists. Yeah. You know, at least the socialists are out of the closet. We know who they are. Obama, I think, is even further left than that.
Let me ask you, you go through all the problems in the book that we're facing and how we're destroying this country for future generations.
And who did it? And who did it?
And who did it? And you name names, and you go through every aspect. Then you say there, in your last book, you talked about the Liberty Amendments. In this book, you talk about a new civil rights movement. Where do the Liberty Amendments stand, and what's the new civil rights movement?
The Liberty Amendments are there, and people should continue to press for a convention of the states, bottom up. I talk grassroots all the time. We believe in federalism. We believe in the 10th Amendment. Washington is not going to correct the design that he created. Obama's on the loose. Congress is on the loose. The courts are on the loose. And Article 5, the Convention of the States, is what the framers gave us to fix that. What I've done here is I said, you know, young people, you need to stir yourselves. You need to inform yourselves. Every poll shows that you resist authority. Every poll shows that you don't like the status quo. Every poll shows you don't like or trust government. And yet you vote for all three of those in every election cycle.
We're robbing them blind.
And they're robbing themselves blind. And so what I'm saying is you need to stir yourselves, inform yourselves. And yet, you and I, our generation, parents and grandparents, we say, what's wrong with these kids? I'll tell you what's wrong with these kids. We send them to schools that are left-wing with left-wing tenured professors. The media is left-wing. It is endless. The drumbeat out of Hollywood, the culture is left-wing. The politicians. It's time that people, you, me, parents and grandparents, there's millions of us, that we be the Paul and Paulette Reveres, and we inform our kids, have them informed, so they challenge the professors, so they challenge the media, so they do what needs to be done. I'm calling for, or pushing for, just like there was a Tea Party movement, a Reagan movement, a conservative movement, a real new civil rights movement. Al Sharpton's not a civil rights movement, he's a huckster. A real civil rights movement where we advance liberty, prosperity, private property rights, capitalism, American sovereignty, and individual sovereignty. That's what we need to do, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Well, this is a tipping point and in terms of the survival of this republic. And this is a rallying call. Love the book. Mark Levin, the great one. All right, you can catch his radio show every day as well.